At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to John Allman, a famous rock star who just bought a place in Cyprus and moved there from New York. A few days after he moves into his new house, as he enjoys the view, John sees a man standing over the edge of the cliff in front of his house, seemingly appreciating the view. Thinking he was a paparazzi, John tells the man to leave his property. The man acknowledges John, but suddenly falls over the cliff to his death. John is shocked beyond belief and calls the police. Captain Manoli and his men respond to the call, identify the deceased as a local man named Vangelis, and secure his body. Captain Manoli introduces himself to John, welcomes him, and tells him that his new house is labeled as accident-prone by the locals. He explains further by sharing that the cliff in front of John's new house is where many locals and even international people on vacation have been known to have unfortunate accidents, and the house has been inhabited for years. The captain adds that multiple accidents occur there every month and advises John to call him when he sees anyone standing over by a cliff. John now realizes why he was able to get the property cheaply and promises to cooperate with the captain on his request, even suggesting building a fence. A couple of days later, John goes out to the market to get some groceries and meets the owner, Koulas, who recognizes him as a rock star. Seeing that John is a bachelor, living alone, Koulas arranges everything he's going to need for him. John is very grateful, but shocks Koulas when he gives her his address so that his groceries can regularly be delivered to his house. Koulas is concerned for his safety and advises him to be careful. A few days later, John desperately tries to build a fence around the cliff to prevent any more accidents but fails. He passes out from heat and exhaustion and is found by a local young singer named Melina as she comes to deliver his groceries. John invites Melina in, and upon seeing his pictures, she recognizes him as the rock star. Later, John calls his manager Jimmy, who has been worried sick over John's sudden disappearance. Jimmy is happy to hear from John and encourages him to not give up, telling him that he can recover from his last album and make a comeback. This conversation is interrupted when John sees an old woman walking dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. Fearing for the woman's safety, John calls the police immediately. After their arrival, John learns that the woman is Georgia, Vestige's mother, and has come to the cliff looking for closure over her son's accident. Captain Manoli appreciates John's concern for Georgia, recognizes him as the famous singer, and invites him out to dinner at a tavern in the town center. John reluctantly agrees and joins Captain Manoli at the tavern that night. Melina sings for the crowd while everyone has dinner and enjoys themselves. The captain and John get to know each other better, and Captain Manoli promises John that he will set him up on a date with his sister. Then, the captain introduces John to a few of the locals, the mayor and his wife, and a renowned doctor named Sia. John recognizes Sia and is stunned to see her there. Sia pretends not to know him and introduces herself. The rest of the locals recognize John and compliment him on their favorite and his best-selling song, Girl on the Beach. To stop their further inquiry, John lies and tells them that the song is fictional. John excuses himself from the dinner and proceeds to leave, but is followed by Sia, who asks him what he's doing there. John and Sia share a passionate kiss. Sia spends the night at John's place and sneaks back to town the next day. Sia goes to her house and learns that her sister Koulas and her mother have gone to church. Sia quickly changes her clothes and joins her family at church. There, Koulas is suspicious about where Sia has been all night. Then John calls Koulas's number, hoping to speak to Sia and tell her that she has forgotten her phone at his place. John then asks Sia out for dinner, but she's reluctant to accept. John hopes to rekindle his long-lost romance with Sia. The next day, John goes to the hospital and asks Sia if he could make her dinner at his house, and Sia agrees. Later that day, John goes to a beach that he assumed was private and swims naked. However, a family group comes in to spend the day, and John is forced to stay in the water and cover his nudity until they leave, out of embarrassment. As a result, John is sunburned and orders medicine from the store, which Melina delivers. Melina and John get to talking, and she asks him to play his guitar for her. John negotiates to play the guitar in exchange for Melina cooking and preparing dinner for him and his guest. Melina excitedly agrees. John plays the guitar while she sings. John is impressed by her talent and encourages her to follow her dreams of becoming a singer. Melina tells him that she lives in a small town where there aren't many opportunities, but that she hopes to make it big someday. John then confesses that the song "Girl on the Beach" was for the girl of his dreams, whom he met at the beach decades prior. He then shares another one he wrote for the mystery girl, called "Find Me Falling." Melina is impressed by the song and advises him to finish it, as it can have the potential to break records. Melina and John spend a couple of more hours discussing music, art, and their passions. Then Melina starts cooking while John dresses, warning Melina to leave as soon as his guest arrives. After a few moments, Sia arrives and greets John warmly. However, as she steps into the house, she realizes that John has company, misunderstands the situation, and is offended. Then, as John and Sia bicker, Melina is confused to hear her mother's voice and comes out from the kitchen. Melina is shocked upon seeing her mother, Sia, and asks her what she's doing there. Sia freaks out in turn at seeing Melina there and thinking that something might have happened between her and John. John becomes even more bewildered to see Melina and Sia interact as mother and daughter. Melina calms her mother down by assuring her that she's there just to cook. Amidst all this chaos, another woman named Elpida shows up, introduces herself as the captain's sister, and declares that she's there for her date with John. Sia is furious to hear this and leaves John's house with Melina. Elpida follows them. John finds himself alone and wondering what just happened. On the way back, Sia explains to Melina that she had met John a few nights ago and that this was her second date with him. Back at Sia tells Kulas what happened on the date and warns that Melina should never be sent to John's house for deliveries. Kulas is shocked to realize Sia's John from all those years ago is the rock star John Allman and agrees to send someone else for deliveries by TP. The next day, Melina chats with her grandmother and asks her about John and Sia's relationship. Her grandmother tells Melina that the relationship happened many years ago and insinuates that John is back, hoping to rekindle it. Later that day, Sia makes personal deliveries to John so they can talk about what happened the previous night. Sia tells John that Melina is his daughter and that when she found out that she was pregnant, she had gone to New York to tell him. Sia details, however, that once there, she got scared off by John's groupies and the life of a rock star. Sia adds that Melina doesn't know about their past relationship, or that John's her father, and that she was told that her father was a tourist Sia had a summer fling with. Upon hearing this, John shuts down and doesn't even know how to respond. Sia apologizes and leaves. One night, Melina sings at the tavern, while the people of the town, including Sia and John, are gathered in the crowd. John watches Melina's performance proudly, but is shocked when she invites him on stage to do a duet with her. John reluctantly joins Melina on stage, and they start singing together. However, all of a sudden, John reveals to the public that Melina is his daughter and asks Sia how she could keep her from him. Everyone's shocked, especially Melina, who storms out of the tavern, followed by Sia. Outside, Melina fights with her mother, demanding to know how she could lie to her for all these years and accusing her of robbing her childhood. Sia tries to explain that she thought she was doing what was best for Melina at the time, as the life of a rock star doesn't inspire fatherhood. John returns to his home and resumes his lonely life, continuing to build his fence while still trying to process what happened. On the other hand, Melina stops talking to Sia and even starts avoiding her. One day, Sia's mother comes up with an idea to end the hostility and invites Sia and Melina to her house, where she sits them both down and forces them to have a conversation. The plan goes well. Melina forgives her mother, and the two work out their problems. Meanwhile, John shares his new song with Jimmy and calls him to find out his opinion. Jimmy is excited about the amazing new song and tells him to return to New York as soon as possible so that they can get to work recording the song. This conversation is interrupted when John sees a young woman wandering by the cliff and runs to warn her to be careful. When he gets to her, John sees that the girl is pregnant and is extremely confused and stressed about becoming a single mother and disappointing her parents. The girl freaks out on John, who tries to calm her down the best way he can. Then when she tells him she has nowhere to go, John offers the girl a place to stay for the night. The next morning, John calmly comforts the girl and convinces her to go see her parents. Then John takes the girl to her parents' house in town and is shocked to see that she's Captain Manoli's daughter. Upon hearing what's going on, Captain Manoli loses his mind and freaks out, so much so that his wife tells him to go somewhere and calm down while she takes care of their daughter. Captain Manoli goes to John's place and the two hang out. The captain vents to John about what this all means, and John tries to calm him down. Later that night, Captain Manoli receives a call telling him that his daughter has gone to labor. John and Captain rush to the hospital, with the captain freaking out about becoming a grandfather on the way. At the hospital, John buys flowers and balloons and proceeds to enter the building. Sia runs into him there, misunderstands the situation, and scolds him for trying to make up with her in a pretentious way. John explains the situation and shocks her by telling her that she doesn't have to worry about him anymore, as he's leaving to go back home for his new song. John then visits Captain Manoli's daughter and is honored when she tells him that she has named her newborn after him. John returns home, starts taking down his fence, and prepares to return to New York. Then John goes to the store and apologizes to Melina for the way he handled everything. John then forms a plan with Melina and she teaches him a local Greek romantic song. Then Melina, John, and a small band gather around Sia's house, and John starts singing the Greek song, accompanied by Melina. The local people gather around and join Melina and join in the song, forming a beautiful choir that attracts Sia's attention. Sia appreciates the gesture but can't run to John as he hoped, as she's still unsure that he's changed his rock star way of life. The locals are disappointed and leave, wishing John good luck. Melina then comforts him, and he gives her his new song, Find Me Falling, as a gift so that she can make it her own and sing it. A couple of days later, Melina shows the new song to Sia, in a bid to convince her that he's changed. Sia sees the song and is touched. She rushes to John and asks him for another chance. The two embrace and kiss. Melina is shown happily recording a new song with Jimmy in New York when her parents, who have stayed back on the island, call her and tell her how much they loved her latest song. Melina appreciates their support and tells them how happy she's been. John and Sia then prepare to celebrate baby John's birthday with Captain Manoli, his family, and Sia's family. The movie concludes as they all gather around a table, sharing a family meal and singing a birthday song in Greek.